Hey guys, have you heard of the legend of Sleepy Hollow?
Yeah, the Headless Horseman?
No, don't you mean Ichabod Crane?
No, I mean the other legend of Sleepy Hollow. That's today on Folktown.
This week on Folktown, Sleepy Hollow, a town that's anything but sleepy. Welcome to Folktown.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome back. So this is week 2 of our Sleepy Hollow adventure, and this week's tale is The Witches of Sleepy Hollow. Dayelle, you want to lead us into this?
Yeah, so it is worth noting that Hudson Valley, where Sleepy Hollow is located, has a rich history of Dutch settlers. These settlers brought with them their European beliefs in the supernatural, including tales of witches, ghosts, and other apparitions. Over time, these stories became woven into the local folklore, creating the enchanting tapestry of legends that the area is known for today.
Dum dum dum.
I love talking all things witches. I think we all do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Practical magic.
I literally, as you were saying that, I was thinking the scene coming down the stairs as they're singing
and the coconut.
Dale, did I or did I not tell you the one day I left the studio, I was like, I'm going home to get margarita stuff so I can make midnight margaritas and watch Practical Magic. And that was like September.
Yep.
I have already started a list just based on our pre-conversation of all the movies that I need to watch in the next 2 weeks.
Yes. I feel like watching Practical Magic is like a October 1st kind of like rite of passage. You just have to do it. It's fantastic.
So we're going to obviously talk about the Witches of Sleepy Hollow, especially Huldah the Witch, the main story of the Witch of Sleepy Hollow. But what do you think it is about witches that, especially females, that love all things spooky? We just love it. Maybe it's the persecution of just being a woman and how you were blamed for everything and burned at the stake if you
Sneeze
had PMS.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it even like, I'm not going to go too far into this, but I feel like it's even kind of goes all the way into like biblical times.
Sure.
Because like as far back as like Eve taking the apple and, she's the reason for all the terrible things that happen to men, like that's kind of an interesting little, like she took that apple after the snake told her to, and all these terrible things happen.
You mean the devil?
Yeah. The devil.
The devil.
I'm just saying, if Lucifer were to tell me to take an apple, I'd be like, are you going to have one too? Can we do this together? I'm in if you're in.
I'm down.
I'll show you mine if you show me yours.
After watching that series, Tom can do no wrong by me.
So true. I'm so glad you brought that up. That is, that's another episode.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like witches are so interesting because there really is no, like I still have friends today that identify with themselves in witchcraft and they practice the occult. And it's fascinating to me because it is really all about healing and using natural healing and using Mother Earth. And like, I'm not going to act like I know what I'm talking about because I don't. I certainly don't. But, you hear stories of witches literally from the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In some way, shape, or another, like you said, back to biblical times. And I kind of love, I don't know, it's maybe the one thing in the universe of spooky stuff that I'm like, no, that shit is real.
It could really happen.
Yeah.
Did we all think we were part of the craft? Like, did we all?
It's like you're reading my mind because I was like, that's on my list too because that's such a classic movie. But I also just want to add, we talked about the white lady last week.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And, that to me really transitions my brain into thinking about witches because we have, light and dark, right? That there's always like a yin and a yang.
Yeah.
There's always this need to have a balance in nature, right?
So true.
And when we see the white lady we talked about last week, right? And it wasn't something that necessarily was evil. And I don't equate white with evil, right? Symbolism.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I'm thinking of these things, right, we could have good witches, we could have bad witches. We've all seen The Wizard of Oz.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
So we have good witches and bad witches. And it was just one of those things that people wanted to sacrifice what they didn't understand.
I was just going to say that. I was like, people fear what they don't understand.
And we still do.
Yep. So true.
Absolutely. And I mean, just the vernacular around witches and witch hunts. Every single time that a marginalized group of society is being, people are going after them, we always refer to it as the witch hunt. Oh, the witch hunt for this group or witch hunt for that group. And I think all of my favorite television shows, movies, books, anything has something to do with witchcraft and or a witch.
100%.
And there's always a witch in them. Yep. But there is, maybe it's because it's so close to fantasy. It's the closest I can get to fantasy that actually seems real. Right?
Yeah. It's like
we're not riding on the back. Yes, we're not riding on the back of dragons as much as I wish we could. We're not doing, but witchcraft is, I have friends who practice witchcraft and do it beautifully. And, there's Hillary Burton just came out with a book this week called The Grimoire Girl about her life through witchcraft. And if you did not watch One Tree Hill, come on, it's Peyton Sawyer.
Yeah. I actually, what's funny about that is I just saw a interview with her talking about, well, she wasn't talking about her new book because she can't, but
why?
She was talking about past and other people's work.
Why? She didn't want to give too much away?
No, because of the strike. They cannot promote themselves. So she segued away from herself.
We'll do it for her.
Yeah.
We'll do it for her. And I think that witchcraft, especially with our story today, it was more often than not a female with a lot of intelligence, a female that questioned society.
Yes.
Or a female that, let's bring it back to the Scarlet Letter. Like, you did anything that was the opposite of what the male-dominated world wanted you to do, you were labeled a witch, and there was no coming back from that.
Oh, I think
and men as well, right?
Yeah, but to a lesser degree, I think.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite amongst all of my research is how if you got to a certain age and you were single as a woman, you were a witch. I was like, man, I am screwed.
Yeah.
I'm not married, so your girl would have been living in sin dead.
I'm like, what on earth?
It's wild.
Makes you think, like, why? Why are those two things connected?
I think it's interesting, too, because I think even a lot of shows today have witches in them, but most of the time they're healers and the people around them think that they are witches because they knew how to heal someone. And so automatically, if a woman knows how to do something, especially something that a male doctor who can't cure a disease or an illness with his, the father that comes to bless them and it doesn't work.
Or the church. Yep.
And then it's like, oh no, the child is poisoned. You need to give them something till they throw up the poison and they're cured. Oh, she's a witch.
Are you referring to Outlander?
Maybe.
Oh,
I was in my brain. I was like, you tell them.
Because I was going to bring that up. Because again, she was referred to as a white,
right? A white lady.
Yeah. And she was just a healer. And so I think that brings us perfectly into, let's segue, you two little chicken nuggets on the same page. How cute are you? That brings us to our story today about Huldah the Witch. So Dayelle has done what looks like about 6 pages of research over here on this story.
No, not 6 pages. I did the least amount on Huldah because I knew Deena would bring all of the stuff for that story.
Bring the heat.
That's all I got.
I just looked up lots of other little stories and tidbits. So I'll do one now and then I can do some after our official story. But one of the stories that I found that I thought was kind of interesting and cool, and also I am so curious to know if this actually exists. You couldn't really find any information if it's real or not. So anyway, but the story is, it is called The Witch Tree. And apparently it's near.
What did it do?
So this tree exists near the Old Dutch Church. And it's said to be a super gnarly looking tree. And it's been there for as long and maybe even before the church was there. And
Yeah, I
the
love that.
legend is that witches used it to gather under the tree. So when it was night, and they would perform dark rituals. But the interesting thing is the tree that was in that exact location is what the debate is over, because people say that the tree is there, but then other people say that the tree is not there. And I've never.
Deena?
I was going to
never-
ask if you knew the exact location.
Yeah, so it's supposedly next to the Old Dutch Church, and it's a pretty specific looking tree. Like it's got some weathering. It's supposed to be very gnarly, and I don't know. I don't know if it exists, but the other kind of funky thing is that it's supposed to be, it is a legend of Sleepy Hollow. So the tree.
I will say, I noticed for the first time that I noticed it this weekend, actually, when I was walking through the burial ground of the Old Dutch Church, which I don't normally do because it's a complete separate entity from the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. But there is a huge tree, I guess I would say on the north end of the church, that has actually grown around a headstone.
Oh, interesting.
So and it's really cool, but kind of unfortunate for the headstone because the side of it that has the writing on it is on the inside of the tree now. So I don't have no idea whose headstone this is.
You can't even see it.
Yeah. So maybe I, because I was so focused on that I was like, oh my God, that's so crazy that it's literally, I'll take a picture of it next time for you. But maybe that could be the tree, because that's kind of odd in itself.
Well, and the other interesting thing is that it said that if they believe that the tree is cursed, and if anyone tries to cut it down or it's removed, that person would be cursed forever.
Do we think a cursed object of some kind could be on holy ground, though?
I don't know. But then there's also the plot kind of thickens, and we'll dive into that when we talk more about Hilda. But because of where she might or might not be buried, does that have something to do with?
It's right by that tree. That's how I saw it.
Yeah, and also she did not have a grave for a really long time, right? There was a yellow stick in the ground,
a flag
that denoted her grave, but
she didn't have a
stealing
headstone for a very long time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because she is not Christian.
Right. So she couldn't be buried in a cemetery.
But she was because of her story, she was. But I think it was because she wasn't Christian, she didn't get the headstone.
Okay.
Some stupid technicality.
I think there's a blessing or something.
So Dayelle, do you have any more creepy little witch stories over there?
I do. I have two more.
I want to hear something better than a tree.
So one of the stories I read about was hex marks on houses in Sleepy Hollow. So apparently, if you look at certain houses, like houses that have been there forever, again, I've never been here, so I have no point of reference for this stuff, but it said that there are permanent hex marks that were either painted or carved onto the houses, and they're symbols, and they're pretty obvious, but some of them are hidden or slightly covered by vines and stuff that have grown over. And apparently you can find them on barns and the homes. And they were believed to be placed there to ward off witches and evil spirits and other supernatural misfortunes. Because apparently there were a ton of families that were cursed, and things would just start happening over the years, that they started putting these on their houses to ward off all the supernatural.
Well, now I want to look at everybody's house.
I know.
I'm going to get arrested for trespassing because I'm going to be like, ma'am, you have vines on the side of your home. What year was this built? Have you done renovations?
I know. And so I'm curious to see houses. Well, and I also wonder, if some of these houses have been renovated, did they leave the marks without knowing what they were? Because it might be a cool little mark and you don't think anything of it. You just leave it there.
I'm telling you right now, if that was on my house, I'd be like, you're staying.
So the moment you said that, I felt I had to Google, because I was just what, I need to visualize this.
Yeah.
And this is the stuff that scares me.
Yeah, well, and they also, so what's interesting about that is
I'm bothered.
they were like, this is not exclusive to Sleepy Hollow.
No, in fact, I found one like in Pennsylvania,
Yeah, and they say
is our
like,
neighbor.
this serves as a testament to the prevalent belief in witches and supernatural back in the day. Like how big this was to people who lived during that time. Like this is their whole life just revolved around this kind of stuff. And they truly believed that these marks would ward off a witch.
Well,
You know-
I mean, I would probably be the witch. I mean, let's be honest. I have a real problem with authority and the mouth like a trucker. I would probably be the witch. So my house would not
I
have
know we don't want to bring up the Tim Burton Sleepy Hollow. But
We can if we have to.
I just want to mention that it did kind of allude or hint even that Katrina Van Tassel was a witch.
Yes.
Right?
That's in my notes. Yes.
And I find that that's an interesting take,
Yeah.
right? Especially with such a
Agreed.
well-known legend.
Yeah.
And because you just that, and I of course did a very quick search, and I found on Tumblr one of these like how to do a spell with one of these hex symbols.
Yeah.
That Katrina Van Tassel would have used, and I'm like, I'm good,
Yeah.
but thanks for the info,
Yeah.
Tumblr.
It's helpful in
Yeah.
case you ever need it. It's really interesting.
Guys, I do have to tell you that when I saw The Craft, I stole my mother's eyeliner
Yes.
and I went to the bus stop and thought I was so cool, and I lined my lips with black, and I took a
With
Polaroid
eyeliner.
picture with eyeliner,
Got it.
and it probably looked like when a little kid puts their mom's lipstick on.
Just draw
And
like
I
a
took-
circle.
Oh yes, and I took a Polaroid picture of like someone that my parents had, and tried to do a binding spell with my shoelaces, like they do in the movie. So I don't want to call myself an expert, but yeah,
You kind of
you
are.
might be dealing with a witch. So
Yeah.
Can I
Who's that?
tell you? I literally did the exact same thing, minus the black eyeliner. But there was a girl, I was in middle school, that bothered me, totally bullied me all the time, got into a couple fights. And so it said, you take the picture and you wrap it and you say the things, blah, blah. I am not lying to you. She never bothered me after that.
Hey.
Oh,
Hey.
I'm just saying. And I am a Virgo, so I'm an earth sign.
Yeah.
I'm one with nature, guys.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So if anybody else is bothering any of you,
Just wanted to
Yeah.
add that in. So if you guys don't think that you're listening to professionals,
We are.
ER.
Mhm.
ER. I know that Dale was not allowed to watch The Craft.
No, I was not.
100%.
In fact,
Why?
Was not allowed.
I don't know that I've ever seen The Craft.
Shut your silly little mouth.
Yeah.
What?
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
so
no.
we're not only going on a field trip.
You know
Yeah.
nothing about Menon?
Skeet Ulrich, come on.
I am aware of it, obviously, because it's like a cult classic,
It
but
is.
I've never watched the movie.
Was it a religious reason?
Oh, I'm sure.
Because, people even say that about Harry Potter,
Yeah.
right? Because it's witchcraft and
Right.
wizardry.
There's witches and stuff. Yeah.
Right? So if anybody does come from
And
a
it looked
pretty religious family,
dark, right? So it
was.
looked dark.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter if it was or not. It just was not something that I would have been allowed to watch.
I've never wanted to be something so bad in
I
my
know.
life.
Yeah.
That movie, my style, everything about my life was shaped after that movie. My
Yeah.
style, the way I dressed, but
But
I can't believe it.
even though I never saw it, I wanted to be a witch. Like I was a witch for Halloween and would make potions in my backyard with a
God,
bowl
yes.
and sticks and twigs and rocks and other things and mixed it all
So,
together and put it in bottles.
I think we've all done the bathroom potions and the backyard potions.
It's like you're reading my mind. I was like, I used to do that with shampoo.
We all did. One of my favorite things that I ever heard, I was really, really, really young. So my mom always surrounded us with very eclectic people. And she was an older lady. And she told me that if you are a woman or somebody who believes in the power of the female, there's a little bit of witch in all of us. Like every female has the power to be a witch. And like all you have to do is believe in yourself. And I remember thinking like, yes. I mean, that's as far as I got. But I do, all of my friends that practice witchcraft or believe in that, you know, like I trust everything they say. Because every time I've ever had like an ailment.
Yeah.
And used whatever holistic thing they've told me to do.
Yeah.
Or even I'm not like a big manifesting person per se, because I don't really understand it.
Yeah.
But you bet your ass when TikTok told me with this super new moon that we had, like, was it last month or the month before, to like write down your manifestations, put your water in your window and get some moon water. And I did it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to work, but I did it because I'm like, I'm not taking any chances anymore.
I mean, it can't hurt.
Being a Catholic girl hasn't helped me.
I think that's the thing is it can't hurt. So why not?
Yeah. Absolutely. Not hurting anybody.
But I think that is it, right? It's that the question of the unknown, of the uncertain, right? People who are religious, they don't want unknown. They don't want uncertain.
Right.
You know, you have a book to follow and this is word, right? You know, like this is how it has to be. And anything else, if you're questioning this, if you're contradicting this, you got to go.
Nope.
Got to go.
Well, and I think too, like there's that belief of witches being devil worshippers, like that whole
in league with the devil.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of that fear also comes from because there's the assumption of that.
And I'm just going to say it. Like, I know we all want to talk about Salem when it comes to witches, and I get it. There were 19 people accused and hanged, right? And that is a tragedy and blah, blah, blah. Okay. But this area of Sleepy Hollow, like we might not have that vicious of stories.
Yeah.
But we have some really good people who, again, found this area.
Yeah.
Helped create these initial stories that then have just developed and created this tight-knit group of people in the area.
Yeah.
And
I mean, even the Native Americans that settled this land, like I grew up thinking I was very, 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 very Cherokee. And so my mom used to bring us to the powwows at
I've always
Orange
wanted
County
to go to
Fairgrounds.
a powwow.
It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But just the way of life that Native Americans have and the way that, you know, they believe and they use Mother Nature and they connect themselves to nature.
Yeah.
It's first of all beautiful. Second of all, they're doing okay.
Yeah.
They've done just all right without any interference in any other way. And they still believe, like Native American friends that I have, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Just the even the commercialized versions. What show were we just talking about not too long ago, Deena? Oh, Yellowstone.
Ah, my Yellowstone.
Watching Yellowstone,
yeah.
which is not a show that's based around Native Americans, but you see just the things that they do to connect themselves to the world around them. It's just what anyone else would call witchcraft.
I'm not even going to comment because I can talk about the Yellowstone like multiverse for hours with how obsessed I am. So
it's a whole
you were
other.
correct, Amanda. Yeah,
we will table that for
one.
another episode.
Just move me to
so Dayelle,
Montana. That's all I ask, and give me rip. Okay, I'm sorry. What?
Yeah, so I have one more very, very short one, but I feel like it's a good place to leave it before our epic story.
Our headliner.
Mm-hmm. So there is a cursed pond located in Sleepy Hollow. And it is said that a woman who was accused of witchcraft was drowned in the pond.
Ooh.
And on foggy nights, her spirit is said to emerge from the water, crying out for justice. And those who hear her wails are cursed forever. Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, so you know how we talked about the white lady in the last episode and Deena asked what we would do if, like, you know, we saw the apparition in the ground?
Yeah.
I gotta be honest with you. A little ghosty ghost rising from a pond on a foggy night. Don't know how I'd react, friends. That might be... I'm not going in to swim after you. I'll follow the white lady up the trail.
Yeah.
I'm not entering that water.
First off, I've told you last episode, I'm terrified of the dark and water. So, I mean, I'm already like 2 for 2 right here in this story. But why does it always have to be foggy or inclement weather? You know what I mean? Like, what if it was a foggy night and because of the fog, someone thought they saw something? And I don't want to be the skeptic of the group because I do love it. But, I mean, why can't she rise on a clear evening night?
Yeah. You never
Maybe
hear
full
stories
moons.
about that.
You never know.
Yeah. Full moon. I mean, that has a power of its own, right?
Yes.
Well, those were pretty good, Dale. I like all
I want to
those
know where the
stories.
pond is. Or pond, lake?
Pond. Specifically a pond.
Okay, well, we're going to have to find that. You know what we'll do, guys, for our listeners? We will compile a list of all these places that we say to go visit.
Yep.
Because you can do like your own little visitation to Sleepy Hollow and find all these spooky things.
Yeah.
Folktown tour.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fun. Those were really good, creepy, witchy stories, Dayelle. So we're going to take a short break, and when we get back, we are going to dive into our little tale of the witches of Sleepy Hollow. So welcome back, everybody. This is our favorite part of the show. So as somebody with 5 sisters who definitely they have the inclination to be witches, I'm very excited for this one because this is the story of the sisters that were witches of Sleepy Hollow. So cozy up, dear listener, and enjoy.
In the quiet, mist-shrouded village of Sleepy Hollow, legends are whispered by the fire, tales of ghosts and goblins that wander the woods. But none are as whispered, as feared, as the story of the 3 witches of Sleepy Hollow. Many, many years ago, 3 sisters lived in the heart of the village. Ilara, with hair as black as raven feathers. Morgana, with eyes that shimmered like the midnight sky. And Lysandra, whose voice was as mesmerizing as a siren's song. They were healers, herbalists, and wise women. The village sought them out for their remedies, and for a time there was peace. But, as often happens, fear began to creep into the hearts of the villagers. A cow went dry. A child fell ill. A crop failed. And fingers, as they always do, began to point. Whispers turned to accusations. The 3 sisters, with their uncanny knowledge and ethereal beauty, became the focal point of the village's fears. One fateful night, a mob, led by the village's most influential men, surrounded the sisters' home. Torches alight, hearts filled with rage and superstition. As flames began to consume their home, the sisters joined hands, chanting an ancient spell. Fire raged around them, but they remained untouched. A mob watched in horror and awe as the 3 vanished into thin air, leaving behind nothing but the smoldering remains of their home. Sleepy Hollow tried to forget, tried to move on, but every year, as the leaves turned golden and the air grew crisp, strange things began to happen. Crops would wither overnight. Children would wake from nightmares, speaking of 3 shadowy figures watching over them. Songs, eerily familiar, would drift from the woods. The witches of Sleepy Hollow were no longer flesh and bone, but they were far from gone. They roamed the woods, the very essence of the land, guardians of a village that once betrayed them. And on All Hallows' Eve, they would emerge not for revenge, but as a reminder. Children would leave offerings at the edge of the woods, cakes, fruits, little trinkets, in hopes of appeasing the spirits. Some say they've even seen the sisters dancing beneath the moon, their ethereal forms shimmering with otherworldly glow. Others claim they've been blessed with the witch's protection, having found mysterious herbs or remedies on their doorsteps, just when they were most needed. Sleepy Hollow learned, as all must, that legends, even those born from fear, have a way of circling back. The witches, once persecuted, became the village's silent protectors, forever intertwined with its fate. So, dear listener, if you ever find yourself in Sleepy Hollow on a moonlit night, listen closely. You might just hear the soft singing of the witches, a lullaby for a village that sleeps with one eye open forever, under the watchful gaze of its ethereal guardians.
I'm sorry. I need to just put on like The Witches of Eastwick or something like right now.
Or The Discovery of Witches.
I haven't watched that.
The Witches of Eastwick did something for me. Like, I love Jack Nicholson as the devil, so that movie always pops in when I think of three sisters, three witches. I mean, obviously besides Hocus Pocus, which is just phenomenal. Amanda, what would you and your sisters have done if you guys were your own little
I think we are.
coven?
I think we are a coven because we haven't killed each other.
That
And
is
there's
true.
100 of us. It's just shocking. Well, here's the thing. I mean, I know you're gonna dive into our girl Hulda for us, but stories like the one we just listened to, I think something I love the most, and I'm very lucky. I feel like I have a coven of sisters. Like I have really built-in, lifelong friends who understand the insanity of my family. But something about a coven, taking sisters out of it, it's really nice to have a sisterhood where everybody supports each other. And so even though they were sisters, I feel like that coven sisterhood, like they're the original girls.
Yeah.
Covens are the original girls, always having each other's backs.
Wise women.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
And I think that actually pairs really well with Hulda's story and the fact that if you had a coven, you were more than likely protected.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were on your own, you were more susceptible to, you could be a target.
Yeah, like picked out from the crowd. Yeah.
So Hulda, one of my favorite things about learning her story is that she's referred to as the other legend of Sleepy Hollow. And I love that. Right?
That's
I'm
so
like,
good.
get it, girl. It's not just about headless men.
I don't know. I personally like this story more.
This is such a good one.
I kind of do too, because she's a hero.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it kind of like claps back at everyone for ostracizing her. Now, I brought up before, Salem had, the hangings and obviously like everybody attacked anyone who was a witch. But because of, as you pointed out, Dayelle, this area being settled by the Dutch, they were a little bit more standoffish.
Yeah.
They didn't believe in that kind of violence and just, the torture and the killing. But they also weren't going to accept you either.
Nope.
They were more,
Yep.
they were very typical New Yorkers. Like, I'm just going to pretend I don't know you.
Yeah.
So really, Hulda's story goes, and you can hear this quite frequently during this time of month in Sleepy Hollow, because there are even storytellers who perform and reenact like for her memory.
Yeah.
But we're going to come back to the fact that she's referred to as the High German Doctor in a little bit, because we were discussing that prior. But really, she's a woman who rolled into Sleepy Hollow as this bohemian, right? And this is someone like a traveler, almost like a gypsy even. And she rolls into this Dutch town and everyone's like, who is this, right?
Yeah.
And so because she's not Catholic or Christian, they're almost like, well, you can stay, but like go build your hut over there in the woods, very far away.
Tiny, small hut.
Yeah. And the pastor told everybody not to, involve her, to stay clear of her. So she moved here and then she was shunned. But where she came from is there's a discrepancy with that. But if, they shun her immediately, she's a witch.
Yeah.
No, they don't know. They know nothing about her. But, you're single. You're a little bit of an older woman.
She's too smart and wise. She's got to be a witch.
And the
Stealing everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. With her her remedies and things like that. And what I loved most about her was, even though she was shunned by the community, if she found out somebody was sick, she would leave them something on their doorstep, right? If somebody needed something, she would always try and show them like, hey, I'm not evil, you know? She was known as a weaver of baskets, healing arts, all the things, but my favorite was that she was a sharpshooter.
That's incredible.
So lady was packing. Okay?
Didn't she lead a battalion against the British Army in Sleepy Hollow?
She absolutely did. And I actually have documentation on this that has come up quite frequently. Everything I searched refers back to a man named Edgar Mayhew Bacon and a book he wrote called The Chronicles of Tarrytown and Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
And he said, at last one day, a force of British landed from one of the transports that had sailed up the Hudson and commenced a march which was to bring them, by means of the King's Highway, to the rear of Putnam's position at Peekskill. As they marched, an imposing array of volley greeted them from behind walls and tree trunks. Not to be repulsed this time, Huldah fought with her neighbors, using her rifle with great effect, so that she was singled out for vengeance, and before the redcoats retreated to their boats, they had overtaken and killed the witch.
Yeah.
Oh.
So,
And okay, that's, first of all, our girl, our poor girl.
Yeah.
Huldah, sweetheart. But was Huldah her original name? And the only reason I ask is because in some of the research I did for this it's a very German name, which you're going to talk about, but there's a Huldah in the Mother Huldah story in the Brothers Grimm tales. Have you heard that one?
I have not.
No.
She's supposed to be a pagan deity from a Germanic tribe. And this Huldah, one of my favorite parts about is I read that she survived her isolation because she would trade with the Native Americans. And she was like a friend to the Native Americans. So not only was she helping heal the Dutch settlers and all the soldiers from both sides, she also was helping the Native Americans and being like their bridged gap between the settlers and themselves.
I had read that
interesting. Maybe that's where the crossover is too.
Yeah.
Well, I also think that probably was one of the reasons she was also shunned by the community, because she spoke their dialect as well. And that was probably considered off-putting.
That's a great point. Yeah. Our poor girl.
Yeah. So, again, I'm going to reference Jonathan Crooke's book that I mentioned last week, because allegedly, from what I heard, he, back in 2011, when he came out with this book really kind of made her story more well known in kind of our generation, like made it popularized it again. Because at that time, as Amanda, you said before, there was this orange flag stick that marked the spot where she had been buried.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until 2019 that the church, through the Friends of the Old Dutch Church and Burying Ground organization, that they raised the money, I think it was like $5,600, to create a headstone for her. And yes, and I sent these guys a picture because I had to go try and look for it this weekend. And I will say it's the red kind of sedimentary rock that is used in the traditional stones throughout the Old Dutch Church burying ground. And I couldn't help but look at it and be like, how is this so well preserved?
Yeah.
But then I found it was created in 2019. So that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because everything that I found it was all around, they believed she was buried to the left of the Old Dutch Church. But that was obviously, now there's a stone, but everything that I found was just that there was an unmarked grave, that she was buried in an unmarked grave.
I think that was the least they could do.
Yeah.
At the time, they also had reported that when they went to her hut, they discovered a Bible and a will calling for gold to be given to war widow families.
Wow.
Oh my God. She's just like the kindest, most empathetic,
such a sweet person.
She
smart woman.
But here's my question. If she had a Bible and they're saying she acted like a good Christian, why wasn't she considered Christian at the time of her burial? Why would she have a Bible if she wasn't Christian?
It's so true. Because they believe she was
She's
a witch.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing with, I will touch on this right after, but like in true Sleepy Hollow fashion, they have embraced this story and turned it around, probably thanks to Jonathan Cruck's book, because she is now hailed as, like you said, the other legend of Sleepy Hollow, but also
she's a patriot.
She's a patriot, and they have the Festival of Witches in her honor every year starting since 2014. And if you guys want to see the best thing ever, it is a bunch of women dressed up as witches paddleboarding and kayaking across the Hudson River at the Festival of Witches. This is a real thing.
Epic.
Hysterical,
So
because
epic.
my one friend sent me a reel of the witches on the paddleboard, and they were like, she was like, what is this? I was like, so funny, because we're literally talking about this right now because it cannot go unmentioned. But yeah, that kind of thing, again, honoring this kind of legend, if you will.
Yeah.
And then the woman who does the, I don't want to say reenactment, but does performance, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Her name is Carla L. Hall. And she developed this show in Sleepy Hollow that, you know, is on the weekends, I believe. And it's called Huldah, the Other Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
And it tells her story, and it's her and her husband that do it.
That's very cool.
Oh, I love that. I feel like I'm glad that Huldah got her comeuppance and got a little respect. But think of all of those like women just like her across the world who did not get this and just died for being good people, just being helpers and
Right.
being
Healers.
smarter than the people around them.
Exactly.
Yeah, being healers.
Mm-hmm.
And or questioning things. I mean, like the ass backwards practices of the times that they were, you know, living. And I mean, like her story is probably one of my favorites. If you want to dive deeper, there's so much about her out there, but she is probably, I don't know. I think you're right, Dale. I think I might like this story better than the Headless Horseman.
I will also add, because I have to tie it back to last week and our Lady in White.
Yes.
I had, we had talked about how that woman had gotten lost in the storm, right, while she was looking for firewood. Well, legend says one of those stories, if it is true, she had come across Huldah's hut while she was gathering that woods, and Huldah tried to warn her that a blizzard was coming and, offered her help because Dayelle and I were looking at this too. Huldah lived near what some people refer to as Spook Rock.
Yeah.
Which,
At the Rockefeller Preserve, right?
Yes, which
Yeah.
it seems like is another name for Raven Rock.
Yep.
Oh,
But
this is all tied together.
Exactly.
together.
And it even ties into like when the original tribes first came to Sleepy Hollow. Like they used this rock to hold council meetings because it was said to have special powers.
Well, if the original story was true, that of the woman who flung herself off of it and turned into the Raven.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, that
Like there's
I would
just
like those
so
powers.
much around- yeah.
Mhm.
Remember how we said in the first episode that like there are places in the world where you go and you just feel the feeling?
Mhm.
Like there's a reason for that. There's a reason that us, let's see, Huldah was first written or, found in Sleepy Hollow in 1770, it says.
Yes,
This
and she
many
passed
years
away
later
in
since
1777.
Yeah. Like this is insane that this many years later we're all still, we all still get the same feelings and she's still celebrated.
I definitely want to read also what is on her headstone.
Yeah.
Because it's very
Yes.
rare, something that old, that you would be able to read it off the stone because of just the wear and tear from weather and things like that. So her stone says, Huldah of Bohemia died 1777. Herbalist, healer, patriot, felled by British while protecting the militia. Buried here in gratitude for her sacrifice. It gives me chills.
beautiful. Yeah. I was just
Gives
gonna
me
say
chills.
goosebumps.
that.
I just love
What a beautiful way to end the episode. That was beautiful.
while protecting the militia. So while protecting a group of boys who had weapons, this one woman just went I got this.
And can we talk, like, how do we know how old she was?
I do not. I do
Right?
not know.
That's another fact.
Great point.
Like, was she a young woman or was she an older woman who went out and just, like, let me handle this. I got this,
I
guys.
think that's why we typically see, like Amanda was saying earlier, like crones, for the witches, these old, wrinkly, white-haired women, right? That's what they wanted us to think these witches looked like. But, not all witches were old.
Nope.
As the mic attacks me.
Coming for you.
Taking her out.
We're talking about witches and they're coming for us.
I'm on your side.
Yeah. I love you.
You're defending you.
I feel like we could talk about witches forever. But I feel like Hulda's story and that is a perfect spot to end. And I really encourage everybody, if you're going to dive into this the way we have, definitely look up more on her story because it's really beautiful. And there's so much more, I think, folklore around her and the things that she did. And there's a lot more to be learned because her story is fantastic.
And I just wanted to throw in, again, you had said last week, if anybody knows any other stories about witches in the area.
Yes.
Or has any other information about Hulda, because
we want to know.
I did see a lot of repetitiveness. And the one thing that upset me was when I heard that she may not even be true.
Right. That it might be a totally made up story.
Because there are no primary sources to verify her existence. And I was like, oh no. But the head
refuse to believe it. I refuse to believe it.
But the head docent at the Old Dutch Church had said, we have a story told 100 years after the event that took Hulda's life. And there's no historic record that we are aware of, such as a record of her death. So we're treading that ground between history and legend. And I'm like,
legend's more fun.
Well, a legend is based on real things.
Right.
So
yes, absolutely.
There has to be some fact in there.
Who do you think?
Guys, there's so many Huldas out there. So come on.
Who do you think would play her in a movie?
Ooh.
Who would you pick?
Are we going young or old?
Young.
Yeah.
Young?
I'd say middle-aged.
I think based on the time, I would say 20s, 30s.
Yeah.
People didn't have a very long life expectancy.
Yeah.
Okay. So 30.
I mean, would it be
Are we making
One
her
Tree Hill
hot?
chick?
Are we making her hot? Oh, yeah.
Is it
she could
Peyton?
do it. In my head, Hulda has dark hair.
Yeah, mine too.
Hang on, I'll try and show you the
Mine too.
one picture I found of her, but it's a sketch. It's not like an actual image of anybody.
I'm trying to think of an actress that could play her.
Yeah, if she was to be cast in a movie. Her life story.
And yeah. Because they've got to be a little bit badass, right?
Well, I mean, Sandra Bullock's not that badass. She was a witch.
I could buy that.
Yeah.
But she already did the witch thing because she's already practical magic.
Yeah, and I was going to say I couldn't see her now being that character.
Yeah. I mean, who's badass in that 20 to 30?
What?
Oh, Florence Pugh. I think she would be good.
Ooh, that could be good.
I don't know, though. I don't see her as if she had dark hair.
I've been seeing, because her hair was shaved and brown for a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think that's the version of badass.
But she's also kind of like the it girl right now. So I feel like a lot of stuff we could see her.
Well, she
her.
can even pull
Yeah,
off
I mean,
her balls,
she's fantastic. And
Hang
we
on.
should have her on the
We
podcast.
can't stop until I show you the sketch picture, but of course.
But our listeners can't see that
But maybe it might.
We'll put it on the thingy for them. What do you call it?
on the socials.
Wait, Tom, what about this one? If Tom's listening, because we talk about her at length, Tom, our master producer, Alexandra Daddario.
I don't know who that is.
She
she's
does
in
have
White Lotus.
that witch look.
She's got and she's tall and
It's
lean
the
and
eyes
muscular.
and the eyes.
And the light eyes.
The
I think
eyes.
she could do it.
Yeah.
Alexandra Daddario.
Could do it. She could do it.
I really
She's
should have
my
just
pick,
clicked
guys.
on images from the start because it
And then it would have been
immediately came up.
Okay, guys. So what we're seeing here
that's
is
cool. And we'll put that on socials so everyone
we'll put
can
this on
see.
social so that you guys can see it.
It's very cool.
It's definitely not Alexandra Daddario.
Nope. Very definitely an older,
Faux show not.
more crony-like woman.
Right. And you made such a good point though. Why is she depicted as old? How old
Yeah.
is she?
I mean, I feel like they always did that with
Coco
witches because they didn't
agrees.
want them to be. Coco agrees. They didn't want them to be young, hot women because then their husbands would want them.
Right. And because they're witches, they could cast a spell on their husbands.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now that we've cast the movie, I loved this episode. We're going to say exactly what we said last week, guys. So head over to wherever you listen to your podcasts, follow us, rate, review, subscribe. All that stuff really helps us get more content out to you. And we're hoping to do many more seasons of many more spooky towns across the world.
There's so many.
So many.
Yeah.
And we're lining up probably my favorite thing to talk about that I hope it doesn't freak people out when I say this, but next week is all about murder. Murder.
And we're not talking like nice,
Folklore.
yeah, like old.
No, these are real murders.
This is
folks.
real murder.
A lot of facts.
These are real.
A lot of facts
yeah,
next week.
real murders that occurred closer to this time.
Today.
You know, we're not dating
Yes.
back to like the 1600s,
Modern.
1700s. Now we're talking like early 1900s. That is getting closer to our
It's the real
time.
time.
Yep, and people that are buried right there in Sleepy Hollow still to keep their legacy alive.
Yes. So we will be talking all things murder next week, but head over to the socials. Share your ghost stories with us. Share all of your creepy crawly stories, all your witch stories. And we will see you guys next week.
Bye.